If you got a chance to watch any or some, I don't know if you can watch the whole thing because it was brutal, of the Andy Wilson, the master debater, his piece with Joe Rogan, I want to spend a little time with you and explain how this was one of the greatest things that has ever happened to us, to our cause, to our movement, to that which we are so dedicated to. Because if the intention of that was to dispel interest, to shelve Candace Owens, to destroy her, if that was the method, if that was the desire, it was the exact opposite. Something was so fascinating about this, and the point is missed. For some reason, as you know, and this is not to be unduly harsh, because it's very easy to say, oh, he's an idiot, he's a fool, and yeah. But for some reason, everybody's got kind of a shtick, and his shtick, his work, his angle, just like to use professional wrestling parlance, is that he is somehow gifted and blessed with the ability to debate in ways that most mortals can never master. He is almost a debating genius. That when he presents his argument, it is so well crafted that it leaves people, stunned. And granted, normally you will see people interviewing teenagers, young girls, people who are obviously confused about their gender or sexuality or politics. It's just like sometimes it happens with, I don't want to mention who, but some people used to go to college campuses, would talk to people, and only the folks who were the most intellectually disheveled, they were recorded, they were presented, they made the platform. Okay, fine. So sometimes that happens as well. The point of this was to go on Joe Rogan's show and to say Candace Owens is full of it. Because remember, after the master debater, after Andy received, I guess, his stipend or his agreement to teach TPUSA how to debate, I don't know what that meant, but that was, I'm going to be getting money from them, ostensibly, so most people would think, I'm being paid theoretically to teach these folks how to debate. What that meant is I'm on the payroll. Then you got to ask yourself, well, whose payroll? Who is paying you and for what exactly? Do you think he has spent any time sitting with Blake or with Andrew, another Andy, or to sit and to say, here's what you need to do. Here's the way to handle this. Here's the way to debate. No, of course not. You can't. No, you can't. Not only teach an old dog new tricks, but you can't put lipstick on a pig or whatever the particular phrase is. I used to call that mags on a rambler. It's still a rambler, no matter what the car is. So what happened yesterday was phenomenal. And Joe Rogan asked some very good questions. I don't want to spend a lot of time, please, going through it. It's just, it's brutal. But I want to give you an overview of this. And I want to tell you, if you really want to, if you want to either, you got to ask yourself, do I want to dispute and dispel the official narrative? Or do I want to impeach the credibility of Candace Owens? Which one is it? You got to tell me which one it is. They're not the same. They're mutually exclusive. We will discuss this. We'll go through this. And this might be one of the best, believe it or not, the best tutorials on debating, by virtue of why this wasn't a debate and why he really doesn't know what he's doing. And basically the work, the angle, to use the wrestling term, is over. So get ready, sit tight, buckle up. But first, this word from our sponsor. Well, midterm elections are coming. Control of Congress is on the line. And if there's one thing financial markets hate, it's uncertainty. Between now and election day, we could see serious volatility in the markets and the economy, and you owe it to yourself and your family to have a plan. And that's where Noble Gold Investments comes in. Listen to me, for more than a decade, Noble Gold Investments has helped Americans like you diversify with physical gold and silver. They make the process absolutely simple, straightforward, and secure. And for America's 250th, Noble Gold is celebrating by sending you a free 10-ounce U.S. independent silver bar when you open a new qualified account. Just mention Lionel. That's Lionel. Call 877-646-5347. That's 877-646-5347. Or visit the special Noble Gold Investments Lionel link below. Election day is coming. Don't let it arrive without a plan. And remember, there's always a risk of investment, and there's no guarantee of any kind. What we do here, all of us involved in this realm, this thing called whatever it is, everybody's got to come up with their shtick. What is it? When I mean their shtick, what's your persona? What's your MO? What are you doing? What is your thing? Candace has hers, Barron has his, everybody has Ian, Carol. Go down the list. It's your style. What is the thing that you do? What is the name of the thing that you do? Name it. What's the genre? Or as they say, genre. What is it? Andy Wilson came along and this was good. He just said, I'm a great debater. Just said it. That's like saying, I'm handsome, or I'm whatever. He just said it. Just self-proclaimed, ipsy dixit. It's true because I say it's true. Okay, fair enough. And he said it with such certitude that people just accepted it. And he said, when will you debate me? When will you debate me? Come on and debate me. I'm the debater. I can debate. And this isn't a debate, a discussion or an argument. And I don't want to be cute about this, but you would think, far be it from me, you would think somebody who is talking about debating would know what a debate is. And I think these are critical words. I'm not just being priggish. I'm not being pedantic. I'm not being, nitpicky about it. But these words mean something, and they mean a lot. And what he does, and what's often, is not a debate. It's normally kind of you're ganging up or you're yelling at somebody. In fact, most of the time we've never really seen a debate. And I don't know why that word has become apparently, I don't know what the word is, synonymous with whatever. But I got to tell you something. There's something very, very annoying about people who keep getting this word wrong. Okay, so here is the story. For some reason, and I think we know why, but for some reason, this whole thing started with, I guess, the obviously the assassination of Charlie, but Candace Owens. And as much as I think we can say this, I think as much as we love her, she really doesn't have anything to do with the crime, with the event. She doesn't have anything to do with it. She doesn't. She's an analyst. She's somebody who came along and said, okay, I want to discuss this. Fair enough. That's it. She's not a participant in this. I don't know how to say this. Why are they talking about her all the time? What did she do? Why is she? I mean, even during the JFK piece with Oliver Stone, Mark Lane before him, Dorothy Kilgallen, though they weren't the subject, they were the commentators. Howard Cosell was never the subject, it was the game. But for some reason, I don't know why, and this is very important to understand, in the history and the annals of all of this, for the first time, Candace Owens is the subject matter. So Andy Wilson, the debater, what's he called? It's very interesting. Paleo Christ Khan. Anyway. And that's another story too. All of a sudden people are using religion and God and the Lord as some type of a piece, some type of an angle. So anyway, so Andy appeared with Joe Rogan, and he had one job. If he really wanted to shut down the question surrounding Charlie Kirk's assassination, he could have walked through the actual evidence, highlighted the gaps, the contradictions, the reasonable doubt that keeps growing in the preliminary hearings and the court filings. He could have talked about that, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the reasonable doubt of the evidence. And with all due respect, and I love Joe Rogan, I think he's great for what he's done, he doesn't know the case. And I would venture to say that Andy doesn't know the case. He knows what he's supposed to say about Candace, because if you understood, you could tell immediately. The people who know the case, it's a different story. So instead of this, Andy decided he spent, the bulk of his energy turning the conversation into a character assassination of Candace Owens. And he framed her as the problem, that she and her others, she's actually being paid off by Act Blue or something, that she's being paid off, or her ilk, her met. So liberal organizations, are paying for her to call into question that which anybody with two eyes can see immediately. They're calling her that liberals, and again, I'm trying to figure this thing out, trying to debate this, that liberals are trying to discredit the official narrative by bolstering her or promoting her. Liberals like her. Liberals, Act Blue, they hate her. They hate her. She's the enemy. Have you noticed? Have you heard anything she's had to say? You're going to give her money. I guess I'm trying to follow this, that there are these, that she's paid off. Interesting that you would talk about being paid off, because remember, he was ostensibly paid by TPUSA to teach them how to debate, even though that, again, I think that's more of the, in case you see any kind of direct deposit, it's for the debating lessons. Oh, no, it's not for, no, I'm not an influence peddler. No, it's for the debates, I give lessons to Blake Neff on how to, answer questions or whatever. Now he's saying he offered her $300,000 to debate, and acted like the mere existence of her questions was the scandal. Now let me talk about something which is very, very important, and this is really critical. I don't want people to grasp this and really focus on this for a moment. If I had my druthers, I think we're pretty much safe to say that a lot of us realize that there's a whole bunch of people who do not want her to be successful in this. Somebody somewhere, and you can say it's Israel, or you can say you can come up with any theory you want, any hypothesis you want. It's not really a theory, it's a hypothesis. And you can come up with it if you'd like. And it's okay. So what they want to do is they want to shut her down. So what I would do, in addition to doing everything that I could to maybe throw people off by going after her, by sending this guy out. Why would you send Andy Wilson? Does anybody know about his style? Do you think he really scored a blow against what? A blow against what? It's like somebody who's sitting on the outside. And to an extent, Joe Rogan did it, where if you don't understand things, you start saying things like, why would somebody want this to happen? Why would somebody want there to be why would you pick this person? Why would you pick that person? Why would you, whatever the particular instance is, why would they pick Lee Harvey Oswald? Why does that work? Why? And you can do anything. You can talk from black holes to the Sermon on the Mount to World War II to Hitler to, if you don't know anything and you come up to it, you ask the question, well, why would they do this? It doesn't make any sense to me. No, you don't understand it. You don't understand it. We'll get to this in a moment. But the first thing I want to do is tell you that what I would do is I would say I want everybody to go out and challenge her, knock her off, take her away from her message and say, okay, she's going to debate this guy. And then another debater is going to come in. Well, I want to do it too. Well, she turned me down. And pretty soon she realizes I just got 10 debate requests. And I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to just to co-opt her message by luring her in. And whatever happens, you got to understand a couple of things. Number one, Candace does not view, nor do most people view, Andy Wilson as a serious or good faith opponent on this topic. He has spent a long time framing her as some kind of a bought and sold conspiracy theorist, and he pushes these baseless claims about that he claims that she's basing claims of Erica Kirk being responsible for TPUSA. She's basically saying that she believes, I should say, that Erica Kirk's involved in it. Candace never said that. Number two, the debate works against her strategy. She's cogent, she's thoughtful. To go in against this drunk at the end of the bar doesn't make any sense. It throws her off. And also it would start a chain reaction to get her to dilute her and redirect her attention. The next is there's a practical and strategic calculation. See, these offers come with conditions and an audience that's already hostile to her. So in the real world, it's like, okay, Beatles, if you're so good, here's $1 million. Why don't you play before this convalescence center, where people will film them being booed? I mean, it doesn't make any sense where you're paid to make someone look bad. And finally, she has ignored this before. Her job is not to put people over. And everybody has to understand that there are people who are trying desperately to try to involve themselves in this particular point. I want to say to my good friend Stephen Salty to stay blessed. Whatever that means, I thank you. I hope I am. I'm blessed with your friendship and the like. Let me give you an example of something which is very, very important, very, very critical. And I want to start with this. I spend a little bit of time just going over some of the things that are said. Now, first and foremost, remember, Joe Rogan is a good guy. I really think so. But Joe Rogan does not understand this story. He may have some good questions, which we'll talk about, things that he points out. Let me give you an example. And watch carefully. And I'm not saying you're going to find out who is paying Andy, because TPUSA theoretically is handing up, we don't know how much, to teach them, remember, how to debate. That's a good way to explain, again, money transfers. If ever there's any kind of, hey, Doge, hey, who's this Andy Wilson dude? Who is this? Oh, no, that's for the debate coaching. Oh, okay. You know what I mean? It's good to have a cover as opposed to, well, we're kind of like the middleman because you know where this money's coming from. You know what I mean? Anyway, watch this part. And I'm going to do a lot of interrupting, so I'm just warning you ahead of time.
Possibility that it's someone else killed him?
Now, let's start off with this. It's a good question. Joe, believe it or not, he gets to the bottom of this, and he brings up some good points. Now, remember, first of all, remember this. Andy, the debater, knows, first and foremost, I know this is coming. And whatever I got to do, I've got to deflect away from Israel or any other force other than the lone lunatic, Tyler Robinson, who, by the way, never mentioned one time to his gay, fuzzy, furry girlfriend, boyfriend, that he ever mentioned Charlie Kirk, ever mentioned any hatred, ever. This never came up. The debater wouldn't do this. Isn't that weird? Say what you want about Lee Harvey Oswald, but they have him doing Fair Play for Cuba as a kind of a. They kind of threw him off, but he was kind of out there. Remember, he was handing out papers and the like. In any event, so they ask him this question. Now watch how Andy, the prevaricator, kind of tries to slither away from this one. Remember, he knows this question's coming. The debater.
Do you think there's any possibility that he was assassinated by Israel?
I've never. Well,
now stop right there. Never thought about this. Confused. Well, come on, man. This is the first thing, and believe me, if our suspicions, I'm just saying, are in any way even remotely correct, That is the first job you've got to do, is dispel that, because that has been the thesis and the suspicion of so many people. Why? Because there's so much evidence by so many people around him that right before his dispatch, Charlie was moving away from not only this almost obeisant support of Israel and Middle East policy, but also wanted to, and people always forget this, he wanted to do a kind of a full-scale Doge kind of an inspection of the finances. Anyway, so the debater is caught off guard. Watch this.
No, I've never. Well, when we're talking about possibility, almost anything's possible.
Anything's possible.
But
Anything's possible. Listen to the SH sounds. This is one of those things. Years ago, there was this, when it was on WABC, Sean Hannity used to say this. He used to say this, 77 in the shitty. And I would say, can you say shitty? Can you say shitty? I'm shitting in a shitco. And he got very upset about that. But people has his S's. It's kind of a S's. Anyway, just once you hear it, you can't. Anyway, just sorry.
there's not good evidence to support it, and there's probably pretty good evidence not to. So
See, there's no evidence. Let me stop right there. There's no evidence. None. All this stuff that, and I'm not saying that there's proof of it, but to you to say there's no evidence of it, what are you, nuts? Are you kidding me? Have you not listened to a word Candace has said? And the messages, stop for it. You understand what's happening? The messages, the scores, the litany, the volumes, the pages, the thousands of words of the message, everything from Israel to what's going on to Iran to the politics. I mean, everything. It wasn't Israel per se. Don't you remember the story about the Hamptons meeting in Ackman and all this? Do you think they just made this up? It's critical for you to know this. If they did, I tell you that Candace is pretty good creating. Maybe she created these text messages like maybe they did. You know, the ones from Tyler to Junebug or whatever his name is. So listen. This is the man. This is the great debater, completely caught off guard.
So,
for instance, the guy was still very much of a pro-Israel guy, even up to death. It is true.
What is he talking about? First, again, I got to tell you something. This is where, if Joe knew this, if Candace had been there, she would have just been jumping out of her chair. Again, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt, or you're lying. I can say, look, I'm not saying anybody was for, but I've got his phone messages here. That's clearly not the case. You don't know the facts of the case. You don't know the facts as adduced. He doesn't know them. Joe doesn't know them. I don't expect Joe to know them. But this guy, you mean to tell me, I hope he's a liar. I hope he's not just this ignorant.
That he was fighting with donors about the cause. And this
but if he could have been a substantial...
Yeah, let me just do I'm sorry. You just got to hear this again.
The guy was still very much of a pro-Israel guy, even up to death. It is true that he was fighting with donors about the cause. And this
but if he could have been a substantial roadblock to the Iraq war, or Iran war, rather, if he was a substantial roadblock.
Oh, listen to this one.
I mean, that's not outside the realm of possibility that a nation state would take a guy like that out.
They didn't take out Fuentes. They didn't take out Owens. They didn't take out Ian Carroll. They didn't take out Nick Fuentes. So because they didn't take these people out, they didn't take out Candace Owens. They didn't take out Ian Carroll. With all due respect, and I love the aforementioned with all my heart, are you the guy that basically was responsible, many respects, for electing Trump, that even the Republicans look to? The number one most powerful voice, not only among Christians, but among young people on campuses, and you're comparing him to Nick Fuentes. This is what the debater comes up with? He's never thought of this? When he went over with his handlers, you don't think he said, now listen, what are you going to do when you say this? Because normally you have a kata, okay, if he does this, you say this. If he brings up Israel, what are you going to say? And he says, they didn't kill Nick Fuentes.
They didn't kill Ian Carroll, so therefore there's no such thing as it. He said this. You're the debater. You're the genius. How much are they paying you for this? This is what you went over. What you do is you absorb and deflect and go into it. You kill the notion of it by pretending to I'll show you how to do this in a moment. And I'm not even the debater.
Take out any of these other huge personalities who were roadblocks to the way?
I think Charlie was very different. Carroll,
yes,
or excuse me, Fuentes is more easy to dismiss because he said so many wild things, shit posting. He said so many crazy things that I think he is almost embodying in their eyes like the crazy anti-Semite, whereas Charlie was not an anti-Semite, was much more reasonable, and if he was going against Israel, it could be a real problem. I also think that he had a tremendous amount of influence on the president. He had his ear. You know, I think the president respected him.
Come on, debater. Come on.
Yeah, for
Come
sure.
on, Andy.
The interesting part, though, if you look at the history there, Fuentes conducted his Graper War against TPUSA.
Not Groiper.
Charlie Kirk. Because of the pro-Israel stance and because of his pro-homosexual stance.
He's throwing it. He's trying to bring in, what's it, Nick Fuentes, God bless him. That's not the question. What is this, deflection? Who the hell cares about Nick Fuentes? That's not the question.
Like big tent Republicanism, they called it. Yeah. So they had the pro stances for these things. And what's interesting about all of it, if you follow the details of it up until Kirk's death, TPUSA actually moved a lot more towards the Groiper-Fuentes position.
What is he talking about, TPUSA?
Then they moved towards the kind of pro-Israel, this type of position, meaning...
What? What is he talking about? TPUSA was pro-Groiper? Then... Is there not any light? Doesn't lightning come from the sky or something? Isn't there supposed to be some bolt that strikes him dead for saying this?
A lot of the ideology that I think Kirk was changing on came from these various outside influences. And so if that's the case, why wouldn't you just curtail those outside influences?
Oh, no. See, what he's saying is very simply this. You see, Charlie wasn't saying this on his own. Charlie was getting his marching orders from Nick Fuentes and Ian Carroll. Nick Fuentes is telling Charlie, or other people like Nick Fuentes. Charlie didn't think this on his own. Charlie was led to believe this, not by his own independent evaluation, his own independent knowledge, his own independent research, his own independent brilliance, and his own independent ability to recognize the obvious. No, Charlie learned this, gleaned this, was funneled this by other people. So don't go after Charlie, go after the people who went after Charlie. This is absurd. This is the debater. And right now, people are saying, what is he talking about? They're trying to dissuade. So here's my thing. What does it matter to you? What does it matter to you? I'm just saying, call me crazy, if Israel was responsible for this, which we're not saying it is, but if it was, you want to say Candace is full of it and basically that the official narrative was correct. All you have to do is say, we don't know. We don't know. We can interpret this. Move on. Let's talk about the evidence. He is spending too much time trying to disassemble the connection to Israel. Why does this bother you so much? He doesn't care about any connection to Trump, doesn't care about any connection to the Republican Party or to any influence from the internet or from Elon Musk or any of the others. No, as soon as they said Israel, that's when he said, get them. Now, why would that be? Why would that trigger this defense mechanism? Why? Some people would say that's whom you represent. That might be, many would suggest, the people who are supporting you, not some blank check from TPUSA, but that the real reason for you is to dispel any connection that everybody's making, especially now when the shit is hitting the fan from so many directions. And this is at the time when we have critical political races, where you've got DSA activism going through the roof in terms of polling numbers, and they bring this guy out. This guy, and anybody watching this would say, "Oh, you know what? I think this guy's trying to get Israel out of the way. I think he worked for Israel. Why? Because hell, the only way you get him to say anything is if you bring up Israel or Candace Owens, which are kind of do you see what I'm saying? All he has to do is say, you know, Joe, that's a great question. But as you know, motivation is going to be one of the toughest things ever. And motivation can sometimes lead you in the wrong direction. But absolutely, sure it is. But we don't know enough about this. You see, what I'm saying, Joe, this is what I would say if I were this guy. You see, Joe, we don't know these things. So for me to suggest this, for me to bring this as a possibility is really unfair and dangerous, because I don't know enough about this. But that's not what he says.
And then you can keep Kirk as the mouthpiece, right? So I think that there's a pretty good counter to that idea.
What
now,
idea?
You can't rule anything out as possibility, but it seems likely to me, with how much trans have been shooting everything up for
trans
the last couple of years, and how often it's the case that you find leftists involved in these signal groups and involved in these group chats and things like this for the purpose of radicalization. Wouldn't surprise me a bit if there was a left-wing conspiracy assisting Tyler Robinson.
That's it. Control the narrative by repeating the narrative. Do you see what's happening here? Do you see what's happening here? This is the part that blows me away. Do you think anybody high-fived him? Do you think his paymasters, his overlords said, "Way to go. That's exactly right. You sure dispelled that." You basically said, no, it's the left. First of all, how do you know the motivation behind anything? Now, remember, if Joe had known the facts of the case, which he doesn't, and why would he? He doesn't know what the way would. I guarantee you, if Baron Coleman had been there, or Ian or Candace, really and truly, in a legitimate, not one of these schlocks screaming and yelling, it would have been brutal. Just that notion alone, if they said, "Wait a minute, are you telling me that you're putting more credence in this, quote, trans activist, violent trans Tifa group versus the initial suggestion or question as to any kind of an Israeli influence?" Now, by the way, what we're saying here is we don't know. But I'm not going to go on anybody and say, "Nah, that's bullshit. That's crazy. There's no evidence of this whatsoever." That's not true. It's not true. So already you're lying. Already you're lying. See, this is the part that just drives me nuts. This is the part that kills me. This is the part. People ask like the mere fact that Candace is asking questions, that's the scandal. That's ridiculous. That choice didn't land the way it would. You see, it did the opposite. It did the opposite. What they're doing is so interesting. His weird deflection, it made people possibly look harder. And by the way, it comes back later even harder. But it makes people look harder and listen harder and start asking the same questions he refuses to answer. He deflects it. See, what Andy's supposed to be is the great debater, okay? The guy who takes on anyone, the guy who lives for the clash of ideas, who runs debate training and goes on long-form shows to demonstrate this intellectual rigor, the immense capacity that he has for this. On Joe Rogan, he had the biggest stage available to anyone on the right or left or whatever who wants to close the book on this case. This is what he had. He could have treated the audience like adults who've watched the hearings, read the filings, noticed the same particular problems, and that Candace and others have been pointing out. We've been doing this. I mean, never talking about anything about other than the evidence. But he chose not to do that. He chose to paint the skepticism itself as somehow progressive funded or leftist funded or unserious or stupid or crazy. But he never once sitting with the concrete issues that made the official story feel incomplete. See, this is the part that gets me. You can't go after this. You can't establish yourself going after this by attacking Candace or anything for that matter. You can't deflect it. It's leftist, it's right wing, it's atheists, it's demons. No. Start with the confessions. Start with the confessions. The state's case theoretically leans hard on text and a note that Tyler Robinson purportedly, allegedly left under a keyboard for his girlfriend or whatever, Lance Twiggs, who, by the way, has been granted immunity. Why? Who in any other context would have been considered a co-defendant or an accomplice. Well, nobody's talking about that. The text read like a confession, right? The note reads like a confession. Twiggs later describes Robinson pacing around the apartment the next day, crying a little, saying he wished he had not done it, whatever. Now, on the surface, that looks damning. But Wilson never addressed why so many people find those statements shaky. He never talked about the timing. He never talked about the chain of custody on the phone. He never talked about the fact that Lance was given use immunity, or the odd way the messages appear, or then get deleted under instruction. He never mentioned the argument that a real assassin who planned for over a week and engraved bullets will leave such a tidy little paper trail for his roommate, all the while saying, don't tell anybody about this, while he's telling everybody about it. And simultaneously trying to retrieve the rifle without being seen. I mean, none of the, you want to talk about weird. The story that's provided doesn't make any sense. And the whole idea of how you remember during the 9/11 hearings with Philip Zelikow. Remember this? He was the guy who pretty much ran the show. They asked Bush and Cheney to appear. I think maybe Condoleezza Rice too. And Bush said, "I'm not going to appear unless I'm with Cheney, and it can't be under oath." And I mean, it was the wildest thing. That's what this is. So you've got Lance, who was on this. Remember where he really cleaned up, granted immunity, and he said he never talked about any of this stuff. So there's problems with that. Then there's the fact that we don't even know what the parents said. We don't even know if they ever even received any kind of a quote confession, because the reason they turned him in wasn't to confess, which is another story that he doesn't address. Why would you turn yourself into the police and not say, I did it? Who turns himself in and says, I want to turn myself in? Did you do it? Did you do it? I'd rather not say I did. I'm just turning myself in. Reasonable doubt permeates this entire case. And it doesn't require the texts are fake. It only requires showing that the circumstances around them are messy enough that a jury could have very serious questions as to the legitimacy. What if I told you that Lance had also access to the Discord? What if I told you that? Does that make a difference? How about the fact that he wrote this thing? They burnt. I'm not going to expect Andy to understand authentication issues or 403 evidence, but to have something that there was a case where you took a picture of it, then burned it, and then showed it, and then all of the other issues regarding how they sat, and you know this, I'm telling you what you already know, that they're not addressing. How did so many people like Andy and others come forward and say, for example, yeah, I saw it. We saw this 4K thing. It was so clear. I couldn't believe it. And then he had Probiotic and was sitting back saying, I looked at the clock and I was saying, please let this be over. Please let this be over. Let this horror be over. I can't believe what I'm seeing. I can't believe. See, Andy skips over that or doesn't know it. He acted as if confessions were ironclad or anyone still looking at them was simply refusing to accept reality. Never mentioned the DNA. Prosecutors say that Tyler's DNA is on the rifle, the towel, and the cartridges, and that's strong if it stands alone. It doesn't. His DNA seemed to be the most degraded. Lance's DNA is also on the key items. The towel wrapped around the rifle, and the screwdriver supposedly found near the perch. See, they never get into that. The mixtures are real, but the percentages vary depending upon which expert is speaking. See, the presence of all of this is in dispute. This is the part which is so incredible to me. This is the part where I become angry because you think I'm stupid, or you think you're insulting me. You're insulting me. And it is obvious to anyone watching this, they don't want you to ask questions. And whoever is responsible for this, ostensibly, we can only imagine, seems to be bringing out legions and teams and brigades of these idiots from cat turd on down. And it follows a similar MO of people and influencers being bought off. But they never really get to the point of this. They never get to the issue. And this is a part that is the most problematic. Who are these people? Why are you doing this? And I would love to sit down with Joe Rogan and ask him a very simple question. Let's look at this thing. And let me ask you something. If I'm not able to answer a question, because he brings up some very interesting points later on. He brings us some very interesting points about how things were. Give you an example. Give you an example of this. They have a hard time with the notion of the exploding mic. The exploding mic is who? With all due respect, Candace Owens brought that up. BETN and others. Candace Owens brought that up. It was her alternative hypothesis. Something to look at, something to consider. That's not the official narrative. What they're doing is they're saying it is. And how many people think, maybe from watching this, that that's the defense's position? Defense isn't saying anything. I don't know what they're doing, and I'm sure they're doing a great job. But they're making this sound as though that's the issue. They're making it sound as though that's what we're talking about. That's the critical part. Nobody's bringing this up. She brought this up as a possibility, only because certain things. Rob O'Neill, the Navy SEAL, and others who touted with killing bin Laden, knows a little bit about weapons systems and the like, including what is his name? The Brigadier General. They said the same thing. It's not Candace Owens. A lot of people don't understand this, but let me give you this one. And this is very important. You have to look at other things, okay? And understand something. Joe Rogan is still great, but with all due respect to Joe Rogan, this is not his thing. So whenever you get somebody who comes in and tries to explain something, you get into a problem. Let me give you an example. I know a lot about, because I've been living with this for 25 years, 9/11. And when I talk to anybody, what I normally get is this. They can't, why would somebody do, and then I get stuck into this. Okay. Because they can't imagine who could be so evil. I know. And why would you, do you know how many people it would take to pull this off? And they use that typical CIA memorandum. And I go through this all the time. Or they'll say things like when it comes to UFOs, which I know less about, but still a lot over the years. They'll say, why aren't there any pictures? There are pictures. Why isn't there any evidence? There is evidence. You've never studied this. They're like double parked. They come by, they like drive by, they know a little bit about it. And the next thing you know, they can't imagine certain things. I know people who talk about the Bible who know none of the problems with the anomalies. They don't know anything because in this country, everybody has an opinion like they do a cloaca. And as Daniel Patrick Moynihan said, you're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not your own fact. And then fact doesn't really mean anything to them. I also know people who, I'm sorry to say this, and I will be the first one to tell you, they are so conspiratorial, they'll believe anything. I mean, they'll say Trump did it. They'll say Erica. And let me go, if you're tuning in for the very first time, Erica has never, ever, not Erica, Candace has never, ever said anything specifically accusing Erica or anybody from TPUSA directly from being involved in this, in the actual shooting of this. Their reactions after the fact, very odd, but that's not at all indicative of their specific involvement. Now let's watch this, okay? This is actually good stuff. And this, if you're a student of this, this is something you should pay attention to.
People had takes on the shooting, and the microphone one was the weirdest one to me.
Let me say this. Remember again, I'm sorry to interrupt. Candace Owens brought up the notion of this. Candace Owens and other people, not just Candace Owens. Candace, you understand this? This is a very, very, the PETN, these organic nitrate explosives and everything. This is not, they didn't pull this out of their arse. This was well thought out. I know you may not think so, but it was.
It's weird because there's no, like, yeah, the shirt is moving, but also a bullet is going like how many feet per second?
A bullet was spiraling, a bullet in a cartridge from a rifle. Yeah.
Whizzing through the air. Like, do you understand?
Air.
Yeah.
So where's the air going to go?
People don't understand that.
You know what got me, though? So I went back and looked because they say that it's the same explosive which was used inside the Israeli pagers. Now, that was very real.
Now, wait a minute. See what he's doing now? Wait. He's confusing. Remember this. Now, let me just say this. Let me just bring this to your attention, not to belabor the point. And I'm going to say you don't have to necessarily endorse this particular hypothesis, but you got to get the facts straight. The Israeli pager blew up. This, we talk about exploding, is more of something which emitted a shaped charge. Now, let me see if I can explain this. And again, I'm not endorsing this. I'm not expert enough with it, but let's go through this very carefully. Let's say this is the particular, the mic. If it explodes, maybe exploding concave or inverted, there would be something here. That's not what they were saying. That's not what the suggestion was. It was this, the hypothesis being this was either a shaped or a directed charge of some sort, something, all right? Let's make sure we understand this. Exploding pager, not the same. The propellant, the explosive, this organic nitrate explosive, whatever it was, that's a different story. Do you see how when you misspeak very slightly, you're off into a direction nobody's saying? Nobody is suggesting this, okay? Nobody.
Sent these pagers
but that would be an explosion. That's my take. My point is, like, there's no indication that there's an ignition.
There's
again, they have in their mind created this idea that if you were to use this, let me just say, and again, I'm going to say, and I use the word, you want to have a drinking game? Every time I say again, or by the way, take a shot. You'll be dead by noon. If I'm going to have something here as a thought that is going to send something up, because we see this hole, something is, there's this hole, this like a bullet projectile, an object, as opposed to something that just blows up. All right? It's a different idea. So getting them confused and confusing exploding pagers with directed charges, at least if they're wrong, make sure you're going to ask the right question. There's an old famous trial lawyer's retort. When a judge involves himself too much in the case, asking questions and involving himself sua sponte, so to speak, what you do is you got to be very careful. But you say, Judge, if I'm going to lose this case, can you let me lose it by myself? I don't need your help, because sometimes you can be thrown off into directions. So just listen to this. I've heard this before with 9/11. I've heard about this, about thermite, directed energy, all of it, getting one theory confused with another. All of this matters.
Worse, there's no smoke.
Right.
There's no
smoke.
Now, all the Israeli. If you pulled up right now one of these Israeli pagers going, because there's tons of videos of
See?
them.
Oh, really? Let's watch. Let me see some Israeli.
You're going to see smoke
blowing off.
Nobody's talking about pagers. You see what I'm saying? Nobody's doing this. It's a different subject completely.
Smoke.
Is there a dude like where it's on his hip?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. There's one where it's on his hip and gets him. Oh. And you can see the cloud of smoke coming off because of the specific type of ignition.
Right, but
now I don't want to get into this because YouTube is very funny about this. Okay, YouTube is very funny and they don't like this stuff, and I don't want to have to go back and it's so. I mean, it's so. It's so you gotta be careful. You know who's so good about this? Bless her heart, is Cassia. You know, from Daily Freddo. She is her execution of editing. Sometimes anything that Charlie is like, wait a minute, what was that about? She said every word that she thinks. I don't even know what you're talking about. So I don't want to get into. I don't know if it's going to be an explosion, but you hear where we are with this. Now we're off to this. Now they're going to say Candace is crazy because where's the explosion? Well, here's the best part, numbnuts. Where's the shirt? Where's the evidence? Where's the autopsy? Do we see this yet? Can we see? Have you ever seen a really thorough medical examiner's review of somebody? Have you ever seen it? I mean, it is just every crevice. They go through everything within reason. Not everybody who gets this, but they will look at, if you have an idea of where this is, you're going to have that body, that cadaver, that corpse, those remains, and you're going to be able to see this. And this, by the way, is subject to dissection. And the dissection indicates that which is found therein, which later on they found was inconclusive and not able to be connected to the rifle. That is the $1 million question. If I had to do this stuff, I would say, Joe, thank you very much. Enough of this Israeli PTA. You can't prove the gun. You can't prove the case. That's it. No ticky, no washy. Period. End of discussion. That's it. This is reasonable doubt. Now, if you want to talk about the whodunit part, remember what I always tell you. There's the whodunit part. There's the trial part. There's the TPUSA and the whole Erica thing. And then there's Candace. But there's all different types of rings to this circus. It's not a 3-ring circus. It's a 5-ring. It's a 10-ring. For the whodunit, that's one thing. For the trial, it's another. Because what this guy's talking about is he's trying to dispel information as to the trial. So what we do is we don't have anything. We're not even sure because we are not parties to this. We don't know. Unless somebody somewhere, I would love to think is telling Candace, listen, you didn't hear this from me. I'm an investigator, but I don't know. She's never let on. Barron's never let on. Don't know. But we have to have this. Now, let me also ask you a question. If you have something that is designed to, let's just say, and by the way, there are some questions how you're going to ensure that somebody is hit at the right angle. And you're right. Pursuant to your belief system, that's the theory you want to provide. Let me say this again. A lot can go wrong. One little, how did this thing work? How did this? What if you went like this compared to this? You're right about that. How does it work? So you can't figure that out. I've got one for you. If you are a sniper and you are actually you're X amount of feet away, do you know if the barrel and all of the parameters from the density of the air, the humidity, the elevation, how high are we, the thickness, if you will, because remember, air is a fluid. Bernoulli's theorem, air is a fluid. I know it's not really a theory, but the point is, air is a fluid, okay? When fluids move, so based upon elevation and humidity and temperature and you name it, and wind and all of these factors. Do you know one little hesitation? If for some reason, sometimes when people use handguns and they try to fire, sometimes the barrel goes down. Remember that? You ever do that before? People say, why am I missing it? Because when you fire, you squeeze the trigger, your barrel moves down. And a little hair, just being off by a little bit, ends up into a 5-foot miss, so to speak. So you're right. Every time there's a hit, do you know how did that happen? Well, how did this happen? How does anything happen? How did anybody hit JFK? How did anybody miss President Trump's ear? And some people still think that was phony. Maybe he had an exploding. I mean, so if I look at something through incredulity, and Joe's asking a good question, if I look and say, do you know if this going back to 9/11, if this was a controlled demolition, do you know how many people it would take? And when did they go in to wire this? Do you know you'd have to you have to wire the internal bracings and so does jet fuel make any more sense? Okay, so what happens is when I apply my own pedestrian, civilian incredulity, that doesn't negate anything. Because whether you're Joe Rogan or this Jadrul or whoever you are, because you can't imagine it. Do we know anything about shape charts? No. This is not. This was basically a grenade they slapped at people in terms of a pager. Does that make any sense to you? I want you to hear what I'm trying to say. They're trying desperately. And what men try to do, and I don't want to bring this up, but men love to think they're experts on everything. In the old days, when we used to pop a hood, people would stand around a car and look at it and say things about the car. Well, you better watch out. Your distributor, say you're going to flood it. They always say these things. Or if you're building a fire or a grill, men come around because it goes back to some atavistic primordial thing where we were cavemen and built fires. I don't know what it is. But everybody loves to sit back, these two guys, and they're just musing. Like, I don't know about that. If it's a pager, then I think, what do you know about pagers? Can you design? Do you know there are people watching this and laughing their ass off? There are people from, call them special ops or whatever, says, do you know what we have? Do you have any idea of the weapon systems that are available that you've never heard of? And we're not going to tell you about them. Do you? Do you remember years ago, the KGB got this guy. He was standing on a subway platform. I think it was Bulgaria's. I don't remember, but he's standing on a subway platform, and they had an umbrella. And at the end of the umbrella, they had a little, like a needle. And in that needle was a little pellet. And in that pellet, there were little holes. And in those holes was some type of poison or something. It was whatever that stuff was that they use in the underground, the Japanese bomber. But anyway, they had him inside this. And they found inside of this guy this pellet with holes in it where they deposited the toxin, which was slow release, and they delivered it through a bumbershoot, a brolly, an umbrella with a point. They stabbed him, and that was it. Okay? At the time, people said, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. What are you, umbrellas? What are you, James Bond? Yeah. Thank you, Gara. Yeah. James Bond. Now, even then they go, that's ridiculous. No, that's what happened. So what do we know? So we have two people, bless their hearts, and I love them to death. And Joe is, Let me tell you something. Everything that we enjoy now is in many respects because of Joe Rogan. It's true. I mean, it's the God's honest truth. He was absolutely critical in bringing about this. And he's asked questions before that are just wonderful. And he's a very wise guy. Remember during the height of the Rona, remember that? When Joe thought he didn't really know how bad it was in terms of not saying the right thing. He was saying, perhaps maybe different alternative treatment modalities. Well, he had to apologize. Spotify said, "What are you doing?" Who was it? Neil Young came out and said, "I'm going to get rid of my catalog." And Nils Lofgren, or who? Remember, some people came out, and you're going to take away my catalog too. Excuse me, who are you? And do you have a catalog? So Joe learned, screw that. He realized, I'm not going to go through that again. It ain't worth it. Pick the hill you want to die on. So Joe is asking questions that are okay, but he's not really getting into it. Joe really doesn't want to get into this. It's like people who want to talk about autism, or people who they don't want to really get into it. They'll talk about, well, there's been has been an increase in the frequency of spectrum disorders. And, I don't know. Some people say it might be led to Tylenol. I don't see. That's somebody who's not interested. You're kind of doing this front porch talk where you sit and go, yeah, there's something in it. Yeah, and remember when Barney would do that sniffle and they would, yeah, Aunt B's going to make us some taters. Yeah, it's that nobody really, they're not interested in getting to the bottom of this. This was Andy's chance to debate and dispel this. And it was nothing. Now, remember what these people did. First and foremost, number one, this may be a shock to you, but there were some people who said, "Who's Tyler Robinson?" I know what you're saying. You're going to say, "What?" Yeah, there are people who say, and I ask people all the time, they say, "I don't really know. I don't know." People watch Joe like you can't believe. Regularly. Young people, like they did Charlie. Charlie, loved by young people. Loved by people. So all we know is some idiot said, "Hey, let's get Andy to go on Joe Rogan and basically stir this shit up to the point where everybody's saying, wait a minute, what? What about a microphone? Wait a minute, what? I didn't hear this. What about the microphone? Oh, no, you said something about a microphone. Well, he didn't. I didn't know anything about that. I didn't know about that. Joe, the limited hangout Rogan, our good friend Zaman says, you know what a limited hangout is, don't you? This is one of the most important concepts ever. You can hear it during the Watergate tapes. Limited hangout is when you present, it's not really a limited hangout, is when you represent, you present a little bit of the story to get people to think that's it, and then they move on. You don't tell them the whole story. You tell them a little bit about it. So then you say, oh, okay, well, that's not that great. And then somebody comes in afterwards and says, no, that's not what happened. That's not the story. You're missing the point completely. That's not what happened. But it's too late because you expended your energy on them and it sucked up all the oxygen. And now nobody wants to follow through because they think they know what happened. What they know is there's a little bit about. Give you an example. Let's assume you're going to be fired from your job for embezzling tens of thousands of dollars from charity funds or something. And you're going to be arrested and you're going to be fired. And you go out before everybody, before it even happened, to say, listen, I want to remind you of something or tell you about something. I feel embarrassed, but I want you to know. I was caught stealing office supplies, yellow pads, pens. And I admitted it was stupid. I didn't think anybody would miss them, but the rule's a rule. And, well, they're going to fire me. It was wrong. It was stupid. And I'll never do it again. Okay. Then the people who say, wait a minute. What did he tell you? He said he's fired because of stealing office. But no, he was fired because he stole hundreds of thousands of dollars in charity money. And then you come up with, are you serious? You're taking, I steal a couple of pens. Nobody said you stole pens. You said you stole pens. You got in front of the story. That's a limited hangout. You introduce a little bit of it so that people think that's it. It's like you admit to a little bit and then you say, oh, come on, I didn't. Don't you think we're getting a little exaggerated? You know, so Joe being a limited hangout, look, Joe Rogan says, I've got a great gig. I never imagined this. I am not going to be some, I'm not going to give it all up. Remember, pick the hill you want to die on. Bobby Kennedy was he was like Mr. Anti-Vaxxer. Remember that day? Couldn't stand. What has he done? Nothing. He's picking up snakes. He's doing pull-ups. They got him. I don't know what they did to him. I have no idea. You see, when you find yourself in it, you ask yourself, I'm not as tough as I thought I was because they will eliminate me and I'll be forgotten. Bill Hicks had this one routine. He said that the president, when he's elected, goes into the Oval Office. And when they're showing him where everything is, this is where the bathroom is, this is the office, this is the desk. Secret Service comes in and says, we want to show you something. And they pull down the shades. This is how old this was. And they bring this projector in, like an old-fashioned projector. And they pull this, like a projector screen. He goes, watch this. And you see this old, and it's November the 22nd, 1963, grassy knoll, Dallas. And it's from the perspective of an assassin, apparently, that nobody's ever seen, from an angle nobody's ever seen, like from the assassin. And you see it's like, oh my God, that the lights go on and the Secret Service says, now, any questions? To remind you of where you are. Remember what they did to Obama? Remember the guy who entered the White House and they let him in to let him know. Remember, we're the Praetorian Guard. We're the ninjas. We look the other way. You're not here anymore. They did the same thing to, remember when George Bush W was like in Virginia, was riding bikes or something, and they had a lockdown. He didn't even know it. So everybody who thinks they're rough and tough, they get this moment where somebody comes to them and says, you sure you want to push this? You sure you want to do this? You don't know who you're up against. Do you like your job? Do you like this security? Do you like being able to take care of your family? Do you like living in this incredible place in Austin, making hundreds of millions of dollars? Yeah. Well, listen, you've got this guy coming up on your show. What's his name? Andy, the debater. Yeah. Don't push it, Joe. Don't push it. Don't get too, just kind of cover the issues and then move on. So that we can say, well, he didn't ask it. They asked it. If you get to Israel, watch it. Just watch what you say. Pay attention. This isn't worth it. I don't expect Joe to get to the bottom of stuff. He's not going to do it with 9/11. He's just not going to do it. It's not his thing. Why would he give up a good gig? Why? Why would anybody in their right mind do this? We love to think about this. We love to think, oh, they're compromised. Not necessarily. Sometimes they're just doing something because they just, that's just the way it is. And what people don't understand, which is the most important thing, is that this is the most fascinating story ever. And this is the thing which and you have noticed this as well. Our good friend Dan Kroon says, thank you for talking about my hero, Bill Hicks. Oh, Bill Hicks was one of the most important voices ever. One of the most important. He was when it mattered, when he and Lenny Bruce and Mort Saul, I know you don't think of him that much, but Dick Gregory, These were George Carlin, but Bill Hicks was an important thing. What is the question that still confounds you the most? What is the question that makes you, where you say, I don't understand this? See, I was so naive that when I started this years ago, I thought everybody would want to know the truth. I did. I had no earthly idea. 9/11 was my red pill. I keep telling you that. I'm in New York City. My wife and I were here on that Tuesday morning. I remember it like it was. And we lived it every single day. I was here. I smelled it every day. I'll never forget one time I was in an elevator and I thought, wow, there must be maybe the engine is burned out, or maybe there's some kind of electrical fire. It was 9/11. It was from downtown. It was like in the building. It was everywhere you went. And everywhere we walked, there would be pictures of people whenever they knock a building down, they always have like a chain link fence, and they had pictures. Have you seen this person? Have you seen this person? They were loved ones who were missing. I thought to myself, this is so sad. They had pictures. Why would I see their loved one? What, are they lost? They're walking around. Hey, I don't know where I'm going. I mean, it's sad. It was every single day. And then I knew the firemen and everybody lost. Whenever you go into, there was a great little Irish joint in the middle of everybody went there. And the first question you said was, did you lose anybody? Did you lose anybody? Did you know what I mean? At first question. You said, yeah, my brother-in-law. Yeah. Because a lot of people went downtown into the World Trade Center, but they didn't say where they were going that day. They didn't say that. Cynthia says, love you, Uncle Lenny. Have a great day. Thank you, Cynthia. That means a lot. And I remember at the time, I swear to you, I said, everybody has the same, who did this? How did it happen? How do we prevent it from happening again? Did anybody know about this ahead of time? And then people started to come forward like, this doesn't make any sense. This doesn't make any sense. That's not jet fuel. That's not this. This is great. And I would tell people, hey, guess what? And they started. They, what are you getting at? I'll never forget that. I was on the air and somebody said, what are you getting at? The first time I saw Flight 93, Shanksville. The first time I saw it, I looked at the images. I didn't know what Flight 93 was. I said, where's the plane? There's no plane there. I didn't know this. I was innocent. And a caller said, what are you getting at? I said, what do you mean, what am I getting at? There's no plane. Yeah, there is. Don't ask any questions. And they started imagining how jet fuel, which is kerosene, spreads like lava in their mind, like a Warner Brothers cartoon. And then it floats and it goes down the building and down the side, and it goes to the core, the main core of, you should see all the support systems as you can imagine at World Trade Center. And then it all melts and it falls, and it gives way exactly at the same time. It falls in synchrony perfectly. And then another building, same thing. It's down here and it falls. I mean, it's just, and a third building at 520, which nobody talks about, which wasn't hit by anything. It fell on its own footprint, not to the side, not partially. No, 3 buildings in one day doing what never did. There was one building, was it in Spain or Japan? I forget what it was. It burned for days. I mean, days. Still up there, didn't fall, nothing. And I remember saying, does anybody not care about this? You lost somebody? Don't. And I to this day, so help me God, I don't understand. Why don't people want to know? But we love the ceremony. We go downtown and you can see the names of these people. That's so sad. Don't you think this Eddie McDonald or whatever the name is, don't you think he wants to know? Don't you think, does anybody care? That's why I realize this. So when you get a jadrul like Andy and even Joe, I've been through this before. Joe's saying, well, wait a minute. Could it be like this? It's like, Joe, it's not a rifle. Stop it. And then they're saying, well, sometimes these 30-06, sometimes. Joe, the rifle wasn't even fired. We don't even know this. They never did a GSR test. Joe, I'm going to slap him. He's a martial arts guy. Say, what is the matter with you? If this were your kid missing, God forbid, if you had a child abducted, you wouldn't want me to ask these questions. You wouldn't want me to be satisfied with this lunacy. You wouldn't want me to say, well, that's why they say, I don't know. Well, they said it was, she, maybe your daughter was, she's a, how these kids are. It's like, my daughter was abducted. I don't know. A lot of these kids today. When it's somebody that matters to you, you get real conspiratorial. And they're looking at this story, which is preposterous. And they've got the nerve to send this jerk off to what? This is what you send? Who was it? Larry Bird one time said, he said, you have a white guy guard me, cover me? Are you kidding me? I mean, he was offended. He goes, a white guy? This is what you send Andy Wilson? This is what you do? This is out of the pantheon. If you really thought it'd be a good idea, because you know what I say, always let people go. Don't keep stirring it up. People will forget about this. Let it go away. You keep bringing it up. Candace is doing her thing, but there's a lot of people who watch Joe Rogan who don't watch Candace or don't know anything about it. Don't know. And now you're going to spend almost 3 hours talking about this with this jerk off, this guy. Seriously, are you kidding me? He doesn't know anything. This is the way you change direction. This is the way you alter it. This is the genius that you've got, the debater, this guy who does nothing but inspire more people. If you want to do it, just absorb it. Sit there and say, you're right about that. There's a lot of stuff about this. And then move on. People say, oh, well. Have you ever had one of your kids hits their head and you hear that thump and you think, oh God, they hit their head. Don't say anything. A kid like, what was that? People like this, don't look at him. It's okay. Just look the other way instead of, and when you go like that, you scare him and he says pain, scare, fear, cry. But a lot of kinds of kids will say, geez, sometimes they don't, but just don't call attention to it. Just move along. That's not what they do. They brought this guy because somebody, I bet you, on Joe's staff said, this guy might be, out of all the people, they didn't bring Barron out there. They didn't bring, and I don't think they bring, now whether Candace knows, I don't know. Remember, her job is, I don't answer to you. I tell the story. If you want to hear me, listen to me. I don't acknowledge you. I don't necessarily go. But if you wanted just to talk about it, to explain it, I'll explain it to you. And I will walk in there with did I say billions? With big, you go to Kinko's or FedEx or whatever, and you have these reasonable doubts. And what's that? Those are all the questions I have. See, when you see it, it's what? All those are anomalies. Every single one. This story about this guy who's a leftist, how Act Blue or whatever said, we got to get a hold of, we got to pay Candace. Why? To deflect the issue away from one of our people who was involved in this. Zamed says, Deep State doesn't care about you or me, but they care what we think. Well, they also care what we say. You're right about that. I don't even know if this is a deep state. I don't even know if this is, I don't even know who this is. but thank you for that. Why would they? If I'm saying, excuse me, yeah, hi, we're going to do what now? Well, we're the left, and we want to pay Candace Owens, or what are we doing now? Well, we want to deflect the attention away from the trans people who are dangerous. And why are we doing this? Because we're the left. And we don't want people to think that we're involved in this. Okay. So we're going to go to this conservative right-wing woman and we're going to pay her so that she'll say, I'm not going to believe it's Tyler. I'll say it's somebody else. Why is that again? Because we're the left and we want to protect our tranny fuzzy wuzzies. So we're going to hire a woman who is so hardcore. She's going to now switch over and and come up with all of this evidence just on her own, playing the role of somebody who doesn't believe this. They want you to believe Candace doesn't believe this. And all of this, from Fort Huachuca, you name it. I mean, and anybody who brings up Egyptian planes doesn't understand it. If you bring up Fort Huachuca and laugh, you don't understand the accusations. You don't understand it. It's mind-boggling. And for people to say, why do you think all these people happen to be involved in something? Because they just happen to keep being in different places, or at least it seems, but they never confront it. So go back to what I'm saying. Candace says, all right, I'll make your deal because I'm hurting for money. I'm hurting for money. You know that, right? I don't have 5-6 million people on YouTube alone. I mean, this woman can put on a sock puppet and get 1 million views. So she's hurt for money so bad. And her husband, George, this guy's a pauper. He didn't have 2 dimes to rub together. It's ridiculous. So she's going to come along, throw everything away, whatever reputation, whatever faith you have in her, she's going to throw it away so that she can come up with this crazy notion of blaming somebody other than Tyler because of something, I guess. And simultaneously, just so happen to come up with more evidence than you could imagine. I mean, mind-boggling evidence. Just so happens. Annie Young says, they need to watch again. I've seen a puff of smoke. Okay. I mean, I'm sure. But what I'm saying is, this did absolutely nothing. And one thing is, and I thank you, by the way, one thing is, I don't have to believe anything. My job as a juror is, do I believe the case presented by the prosecution? No. Is there a reasonable doubt as to the criminal liability of Tyler? Yes. That's it. You can do what you can do. There's no way. Imagine this, in case you just tuned in. You are a juror, okay? And I want Andy, the debater, to answer this question. So you go back into the jury room, you got your jury instructions, and you say, okay, want to take a vote? Anybody? Not yet? Okay, let's go through this. We have 2 batches of 2 vectors of guilt, theoretically. One is the gun, the rifle itself, is the shooting, the gun, the firearm, and the second is the confession. We'll get to the confession next. But let's start with this. What do we have? We have a rifle. Okay. What do we know about this rifle? Well, it's a Mauser 98, purportedly his grandfather's. Okay. Is there anything that links this to the wound? No. 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 Nothing links it. No. You know what I'm going to show you? This is my lint brush. This is not linked at all to the murder at all either. There's nothing. It's not even connected. It's just, but it was found, let's say, next to the rifle, and it's got Tyler's DNA on it, and Lance's DNA, and Candace's DNA, everybody's DNA, but it's not linked to anything. It's a lint brush. Okay. You know what you call a rifle that isn't linked to the crime? A stick. It doesn't mean anything. It's just there. It's just there. If they found a bazooka next to this, and shoulder-mounted RPG, boom, doesn't matter. There's no evidence of a bazooka hit or any link to it. They could have a flintlock, a musket, an M4, a BAR, name the weapon. Just the same, not linked. Not linked. And people say, well, who was it? Oh, she talks like this. You know, sounds like Tony Soprano kind of. There's Andy says, well, you know, smoking on them cancer sticks. Yes. You know, these rifles sometimes, you know, you can't tell what's going to happen. Yeah, that's true. You can't tell. Everybody swears, I've seen 30-06. Yeah, good. Yeah, okay. Only one problem. Yeah. It's not linked to the rifle. You might as well make it a musket ball because it's not linked. So you can talk about this all you want. No rifle, not guilty. That's it. Now, if they were to say, okay, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do this anyway, we're going to proceed with this. I'm going to proceed as this, and I'm going to proceed along the lines of this, and I'm going to find this person guilty. How? How was he killed? Well, with a rifle. What rifle? I don't know. Some rifle. What is the connection between Tyler Robinson and this wound? Let me try it a different way. Andy, what's the connection? You're going to find him guilty, right? What is it? There's no connection to the rifle. Go ahead. I'm waiting. Does he have thought powers? Can he move things through telekinesis? How does he do it? How do you do this? How you do this? Is it the grapers? What is this? How do you do this? Can't. This is the part that, so it's like, let's wait, Joe, just a second. Go ahead, Andy. Let's stick with that one. Forget about everything else. You're a juror, and I'm going to give you the juror form. You're going to sign your name. You're the foreman. How are you going to find him guilty of this? Well, I know better. You know better? Well, I know it's the rifle. How do you know it's the rifle? I just do. How do you just do? How do you do? How do you know it's the rifle? How? What are you doing? We'll get to the confession later. How did he do it? I mean, sometimes you can have some type of evidence that connects this person to this. Oh, and here's the best part. How could we forget this? We don't even know what Tyler's going to say. Do you think Tyler's going to say, yep, I did it? If Tyler says, excuse me, let me just save you a lot of time here. I did this 100%. I did it. It was this rifle. Why was there dust in the barrel? I don't know why there was dust in the barrel. Dust in the wind. Sounds like Kansas. I don't know, but I did it. Tyler, did they find any gunpowder residue on you? on your cheek, on your, well, no, they didn't. But I did it. It was me. That's why I wanted that rifle. And Tyler, was that you on that running across? Yep, that was me. All right. That was you. That's me. Did you do that? So, and then you got to ask, which is a separate question. Who are these people? Okay, Andy, nice try. Where did Jack Probiotic get it? We said, I saw it. And it was the most incredible thing I've ever seen in my life. Could people be, could they just be mistaken? Do you think that maybe, because everybody's saying, that's another issue right now, of course, but don't you marvel at how many people are coming out of the woodwork to prove Tyler, which has nothing to do with the courtroom? I don't remember anybody in 9/11 doing this. I don't remember, I swear to you, even during JFK or anything else for that matter, people being hired to come forward and to go on shows and go, oh, no, that was it. I mean, I saw it. That was it. I saw Lee Harvey Oswald. I was there. I've never seen anything like this. Have you? Think about that. Are they trying this out for the first time, I guess? The only thing that makes sense, that is plausible, is that they had intended him to be expurgated, obliterated, Baudelarized, emended, and something went wrong, and they were going to butler her ass, but they didn't, and he slipped through the cracks or something. I don't know. But after this nearly 3-hour interview, nobody said, Joe, you can't prove the case. Okay, you don't believe the exploding mine? Fine. I don't believe the exploding rifle. I don't believe the exploding bullet. And I don't believe that. There's no evidence of it. None. What are you going to do about that? Ask the debater. What does he say about that? And that's it. And then we'll get, oh my God, to the confessions. I can only imagine what the parents are going to say. But let me ask you something. How ridiculous is it for you to think that this guy who was so focused on taking out Charlie, that he said, I never talked about it to his lover, his girlfriend, his thing, the fuzzy? Never? They never talked about him? Never? Does this make even remotely any sense? Is the Lancelot saying that because I don't want to say he does, because I'm afraid they're going to try to link me to this because maybe I knew something, and if he was saying I'm going to get him, and I didn't stop him, because there is no misprision of felony for something like this. But in the event he were to do this, you got to ask yourself the question: what kind of issue do they have? Could they be found in somehow aiding, abetting, counseling, procuring, hiring, acting as an accomplice in the accomplice statute, as a principal in the first degree? Maybe they said, listen, he didn't say anything to you. You were shocked and surprised. Why? Because that protects you from any involvement, because people are going to look at you and say, well, why didn't you do something? He was talking about this for how long? And you were what? Egging him on? Really? You don't think that's a little strange? Or they say, listen, your story is going to be he never did this. But that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't matter whether it makes any sense. Because remember, if Tyler was eliminated, all of this is a waste of time. That's why his life is in danger now. You can say whatever you want. Because remember, all of this goes away. No need for Andy, the debater. No need for it. No need for anything. If there's no Tyler, there's no case, no problem. Every day that he's there, every new episode, every new Candace, with millions and millions of people, and a person who, and by the way, he actually said Nick Fuentes is on the same level as Charlie, and Joe got that one right. This is just, have you ever seen anything like this? Ever? I've never seen one where we have put it this way, we have the prosecution, we have the people who are devoutly behind this, but a whole group of other people who are incredibly, fascinatingly behind this, who are fighting us. And I'm wondering, why are you fighting us? Why don't you want to find the truth? Why? Because it's Candace. It's not Candace. Why are you doing this? Why are you happy with a story that doesn't make any sense? I can understand people paid or, whatever the reason is. But just people that we know. Why are you so allergic to this conspiracy thing? What do you think? Conspiracy just means two or more guilty people involved in it. It means, in other words, somebody didn't act by themselves. Why does that bother you so much? How do you think things get done? What do you think? From Vietnam to Watergate to blowing up the Maine in Havana Harbor in 1898 to you name it. Epstein and the like. Where does this come from? It's like people had a plan and it involved Tyler not being here, but Tyler's here and the plan still went forward. They never adjusted. Who is it that said, let's put Andy up? Because he's so stupid. He thinks he's doing a great job. This guy really thinks he's smart. I mean, he really, honest to God, and it's hubris, it's a lot of things, but he really thinks he's just, I guess he's been interviewing like girls and, these people that they bring these poor girls out, they're confused and they got purple hair and they're, whatever it is. But he really thinks he does it. He really, in his mind, he honestly thinks, I'm really good at this. I mean, I'm really good. I'm smart. And they are amazed by my prowess. They're amazed. It blows my mind. I've never seen anything like this. So that's where that was today. So later on, I'm going to be watching with great interest. But I'm telling you, I never thought this case would be this interesting to me. Never. I really didn't. It's not the case. It's this ancillary stuff that blows my mind. I've never seen anything like this, ever. And my friends, I want to thank you for being with us for an hour and 37 minutes today. Do you feel, let me ask you this, do you feel like you understand the case better? By the way, not understanding it, because there's nothing to understand. But do you feel that when we talk about this, does it confuse you more? Or does it make you more resolute, more convinced that you're absolutely convinced that this is definitely a conspiracy, and this is to make Tyler a patsy, and that Candace Owens and everybody else is a hero? Do you feel like that? Do you feel like that? Very important. It's important that you understand this. Do you feel like you are confused? The why part I can never figure out. Why this? Why did they do this? Why? But it is the most fascinating case. Why are there so many idiots involved? Remember when Epstein was killed, Michael Biden came out and he said, basically, this is the most important, it was the most important issue, just like the rifle is. He had a shattered or a fractured hyoid bone and thyroid cartilage. And that is strangulation, not self-harm, not suspension ligature, but somebody trying to, it either never got out, never mattered, nobody understood it. That's the most dispositive part of the case. That was it. That's the most important part of the case. But it never got out. It just, and they're still asking questions. I'm thinking, do you not understand what that means? Apparently not. So just think about this. Imagine you're a juror and you're saying, how do I find this guy guilty when I can't even link him to a gun? I don't even know. I'm not even sure if he was there. I don't. And assuming he doesn't take them, Who says he was even there? That grainy, you're wondering, how can this be happening in our system? And why are so many people sitting on their hands and their ass doing nothing? So thank you, my friends. Thank you. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for that. Please do me a favor. Please follow Lionel Nation. Sometimes people get unsubscribed. I don't know why. Make sure you like this. Like the video. Very, 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 very critical. Make sure also you do a couple of things. Make sure that you hit that little bell so you're notified of live streams and new videos. We'll probably do one again tonight. We'll see what happens. But this one just blew me away. And I like getting it done. I hope you like the hours. Sometimes I'm still trying to find out what's the best time where everybody's handy. We don't want to get on everybody else's shows. And so I liked doing this. But it feels absolutely, positively, it's intellectually and spiritually exhausting to do this because I'm thinking this is so obvious. In any event, I thank you. Please, my friends, have a great and a glorious day. Please, again, follow us. Thank you so much for your support. And keep the faith. We're going to get to the bottom of this, and we're not going anywhere. And the monkey's dead. The show's over. Sue ya. Dad.